Yeah, good morning and welcome to our African series. And I would like to introduce something very special to you today. I don't call myself Ralph today, I call myself David today. And I like to explain to you why. And I go back to my roots. I was a small little boy and I couldn't really have schooling because my parents were so poor. I grew up in Scotland and my parents were silk weavers. And that was not a bad profession, it was a rather nice profession. But I was really one of those children who didn't really have something which I could see for the future for me. I had a dream, man. I tell you, there was one man I dreamed about. And his name was Hudson Taylor. Hudson was a good man. And we used him from the London Missionary Society. And Hudson, he went to China, Shanghai, Beijing, Peking. And he was building universities and hospitals, and I liked that. But my poor heritage didn't allow me that. Therefore, I thought, okay, life will go on. But then I was a Christian and I was grew up in an Anglican church. I listened and I was reading the Bible, and suddenly, as always in the Bible, also said, God comes and God spoke, and suddenly there were very noble men in a wonderful carriageway came across my little entrance there in Blantyre in Scotland. It was a cold day, and they were saying to my parents, have you anything for us to give us something to drink, something warm, a soup? And my mother was a kind lady, and she said, yes, gentlemen, come. And this is my son David. He is very clever and he wants to become, he's dreaming a lot about Hudson Taylor and about others. And this man said, we can see that young David is clever. He wants to do something. Let us take him with. And I said, David, would you like to come with us? We will help you and we will give you a good education. And I said, yes, Mom, Dad, let me go. My mom and my dad said yes. And my mom said, David, are you sure what you're doing? They go to London, that's far away, that's at least 4 days on the carriageway. Mom, I want to go, I want to be and have an impact in this world today. And my mom cried a bit, a tear and two, but then my dad said, let him go. And I went. Went with those men and I studied at the university and I studied medicine. I didn't want to study medicine. I wanted to study theology, but it wasn't allowed those days. It was not really a profession to make money with, but medicine they needed, and I studied medicine, but I also studied theology because I wanted to have both. I finished my course, I became a good doctor, I did my training, and then they sent me into the mission field. And I thought, I go to China, I meet Hudson, and I go and work in China. But the London Mission Society had other plans. David, yes, thank you. You studied so well, you showed yourself approved, and you are really, really a wonderful doctor. We want to send you to South Africa. Why South Africa? I don't want to go there. I want to go to China. No, the persecution of the Christians is so bad in China. They're killing them. And my dear friend David, your friend Hudson, has a very difficult time. They're persecuting him and he is close to death. We can't do nothing about it. Go to Africa. Okay, then I go to Africa. His dream was shattered. But God had a plan and a purpose. And young David took a ship, from London, Southampton, right down to Cape Town. And arrived in Cape Town and he met Mr. Moffat. He was in charge of the missions of the London Mission Society, and young David had to go to a little town those days called Port Elizabeth. The settlers just arrived there and they built a hospital. But Moffat had a wonderful daughter, and David fell in love and they got married and went to Botswana and started a hospital. But then David, his heart was in mission and he didn't really want to stay in that hospital. After a few years, David moved on. And David moved into a country, Manicaland. He also moved further into Malawi and Rhodesia. And he moved further along the beach, the lakes, had this idea of finding now the source of the river Nile. It was a very difficult walk, a lot of obstacles. There was a lot of big trees and the wild animals and elephants and lions and the fever took me. I nearly died. I was a doctor. I nearly died. And I saw the blanket of death coming upon me. And the blanket of death was so close. But I had wonderful friends which became Christians, which were converted. They gave me medicine. And I survived. I've survived. I moved on. And then I found a young gentleman. His name was Stanley. Yeah, Mr. Stanley. We were on one of those excursions and he was sent by, I remember that still, the old days. He was sent from New York in those days, by boat from New York to Africa, to find me, to find the Nile. They paid him $1,000 to do that. It was a lot of money. I didn't have ever in my life had a $1,000 in my life. But young Stanley made this interview and as he saw me, he said, Dr. Livingstone, I presume. And I said, yes, Mr. Stanley, I guess. And we moved on after we had a wonderful time in discussing and talking and sharing of what I was doing in Africa. But I moved on and then I moved down south. This became a little bit too difficult. The tradesmen, the slave trade, it was not easy. A lot of things went wrong. I tell you, my friends, it went wrong. I was often had problems with slaveries and with trades. And the fever did not leave me. I had the fever once and it came and came and came. And then I went down and I really thought I will find. And I went down the rivers and suddenly, I found something. I saw the angels, they were dancing and gathering and glorified on the waters. And I thought heaven has come close. I thought heaven is so near. I thought heaven is there. I thought I was dreaming. I thought I had a fever attack again. But it was not. I saw the colors of the rainbow. I saw the beautiful, wonderful water masses coming up. And then I heard friends in the bush. They say, Musu uyu tunya, Musu uyu tunya. I said, what is Musu uyu tunya? And they moved a little bit further the stream and I saw the most amazing waterfalls. And I was so overwhelmed and I gave glory to the Lord and glory to my precious Queen. Queen Victoria, my Queen. I served her so nicely. And I said, Father in heaven, these falls I dedicate to my wonderful Queen, Her Majesty, Queen Victoria. And today I still remember as I then went and I went back and my heart got older and troubled. I went back into Manicaland and further up and the fever came. But the dream of my wonderful water, it came down in masses. It went through the gorge. It went and I saw the rainbow and I saw how God created something, the greatest creation on earth we saw. it was Muso Uyotunda, the smoke that thunders. And my heart was uplifted, and as I had the last fever, I passed away. I passed away. But my body was taken to London, and it's today in the Westminster Abbey. But my heart stayed in Africa, in Blantyre, today Malawi. And in my heart, the last heartbeat I had was Muso Uyu Tunda, the smoke that thunders. My wonderful dream of Victoria Falls. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
Gentlemen, it is with a heavy heart that today we announce the closure of the Victoria Falls gates. Now this is in line with the presidential directive and also following the WHO protocol of not encouraging social gatherings. We noticed in the last couple of days an increased number of local tourists coming to the Victoria Falls, and also noticed that a number of them obviously were not really abiding by the rules of having to keep social distancing. The NHCC, within its rights, consulted with the LTA to ensure that we shut the doors of the Victoria Falls for the next 14 days. Now this obviously will be subject to review within the NHCC as well as the LTA to see how best we could put measures that will allow our members of the public to be safe and kept free from this coronavirus. Now what you see, ladies and gentlemen, is the Victoria Falls. Today, the 30th of March. This site was only last seen 10 years ago. The water is pumping, the curtain is so full, the site is amazing. We hope that by Easter, this will be a different story. We hope that by the time we get to Easter, we should be able to have contained the virus and people should be able to come and view the Victoria Falls. For now, ladies and gentlemen, sad to say, the Victoria Falls is in lockdown.